Hey, what's up, family, and welcome to another edition of the Simple Systems webinar and podcast. Listen, I'm excited to be back with you. Many of you probably don't know this because I have not shared it publicly. I did not say anything about it. Those of you who work with us, you probably know, but I am recovering from a surgery about 2 weeks ago. I had a pretty complex surgery, and I'm about 60% through my recovery time. I feel about 95% recovered, so I feel really good. But I'm super, super excited to be here and to get a chance to share with you. All right. So, look, before we even get into this deep, I want to say a couple of things. Number one, today is going to be very personal, right? I'm really approaching today's conversation not from a standpoint of, hey, let me teach you something, let me give you some tools, resources, whatever it is, right? Because don't get me wrong, you'll gain something from what I'm going to share. But today, I'm letting you into my life, into my mind, into my world, and sharing with you some of the things that I am wrestling through right now, and quite honestly, really struggling through, trying to figure out and trying to navigate. Because this is an important time for me. I've been thinking about this. I'm getting ready to step over beyond the barrier of 2 years as pastor of the church that I currently lead. And, we came into the church really saying in our heads, okay, 3 to 5 years, it's going to take us to really just build relationships and get to know people and stuff like that. And then we'll really start to push the gas. And some of those things, in some ways, we've done that well. In some other areas, it's been like, okay, there's been some things we had to address along the way. But now I'm sitting here and I'm going like, all right, we're stepping into year three. What are the things that we got to wrestle with? So this is going to be really, really personal. But then number two, I want you to go ahead and share this. Go ahead and share this, tag a friend, mention somebody in the comments so that we can talk and we can converse about, really what we're doing here today. I know there's somebody else in your life who needs to hear what we're going to be talking about, because we're going to be talking about leadership grinds. And I'm going to be talking about five honest conversations to have with yourself. And I'm about to have these conversations with myself, with you here. And so I want you to wrestle with that. All right. So let's jump in. So check this out. So I had a surgery a couple of weeks ago. All right. I'm going to tell you what it is. Before I tell you what it is, I want to tell you, please don't go and Google it. If you go and Google it, you're going to be sorry you did. So don't go and Google it. But I'm going to tell you what it is. I had a complex hemorrhoidectomy. All right. So I've had this battle with hemorrhoids for a few years now. Right. And so all of my moms out there, maybe even my dads who have had to walk with moms who have given birth to kids and all this kind of stuff, you're familiar with that. But let me tell you my story. It started for me over 20 years ago. I want you to think about that. Over 20 years ago, this issue kind of arose. And what happened is, over the course of 20 years, it got progressively worse, but I learned to cope with it, right? I just learned how to deal with it. I learned how to just build my life around it, how to navigate it, how to make sure it's not as painful. I just learned how to just deal with it. And I know that sounds so crazy, because even saying it out loud, I feel so dumb. Like, I feel so crazy. Like, somebody asked me the other day, like, how did you allow this to exist for 20 years? And it's the whole, if you throw a frog in boiling water, he'll jump out. But if you put him in cold water and slowly raise the temperature, he'll stay there and he'll die. It's the same thing. Like, the issue, I just learned to get around it where I could deal with it. And then it's not bothering me. Then all of a sudden it is bothering me. Like, oh, I got to do something. But then the next day it's like, oh, it's not bothering me anymore. And then it comes back 2 weeks later. It's like, yeah, it's really bothering me. And so it's just, it became this cycle of feeling like I'm better and then hurting again. But then the moment the hurt gets to the point where it's like, I got to do something, I feel like I'm better. And it's this cycle. And I'm mentioning that because I have discovered that the same thing happens in leadership, is that there are challenges and issues and things around us that some of us have been dealing with and we have been just tolerating for so long, right? And that these are issues around us. These are issues inside of us. These are issues in our own minds. We've got all these different things. And as I was sitting and I was thinking about that, I was like, man, this is a leadership principle. Is some of us are wrestling with issues that could be corrected. And so what I was battling with for 20 years was fixed in a surgery that took 30 minutes. Now I want you to hear that. A 30-minute surgery took away a 20-year pain. 20 years, right? 20 years. And I avoided it. I avoided it for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I could cope with it. But then number two, I avoided it. And here's where I need you to connect with me as a leader, wherever you lead, however you lead. The second reason that I dealt with it is because I knew that the pain of recovery was going to be great. Like, listen, let me tell you, like, those first 10 days of recovery was the greatest pain I've ever felt in my life. Like, I did like a pain ranking, like, like a few days ago. Like, this is weird, but I did a pain ranking. And I was like, sprained ankle, when you're still trying to walk and play a sport, on play football, for example, playing on a sprained ankle is number 5. Number 4 might be, playing with a pull muscle, specifically in your hamstring or in your back. Number 3 might have been breaking a bone. Number 2 was, I think, dislocating a hip and those tendons. But number 1 was recovery from this surgery, and I knew it was going to hurt. And sometimes in leadership, we avoid making the decisions we need to make and making the changes we need to make is because we know it's going to hurt. And so I want us to have these hard conversations. You're getting ready to step over into a new year. As you get ready to step over into a new year, you've got to understand that if you keep doing what you've been doing, the chances are very high that you're going to keep getting what you've been getting, right? These things are connected. I said this in a Facebook post, is that God's plan for our development is for us to become, for us to do, and then for us to have, right? For us to become who he's called us to become, right? Who he made us to be, right? And as a part of us becoming that person internally, we start doing the right things externally, and then we start having the right things existentially in our lives, whatever that might be, right? I become the person I need to be, then do the things I'm called to do, and then I begin to see the things. And so with that as a blueprint, success or whatever you want to call it, right? If you want to use term success, you want to use term effectiveness, it's a byproduct, it's not an input, it's an output. It's a byproduct, right? When I be the right person and do the right things, and I get the right outcomes. And so as you prepare to go into this new year, you got to have these hard conversations with yourself so that you don't spend another year doing the same things, right? I know as leaders, so many of us have lived and we've learned to walk discouraged. We've learned to be discouraged and keep going. We've learned to not feel great, but keep going, right? We've learned to do those things. And what I'm saying is that you need to be honest about what's really happening with you and what you're really thinking so that you can begin to change the situation. If I had time, I would talk to you about the different kind of expectations that exist and how they frustrate us in leadership. But maybe I'll save that for a future time. But so I want to help you walk through 5 questions that I'm thinking about, and then I'm wrestling with as I get ready to go to this new year. 5 questions: Who am I called to? How can I develop people better? What is our secret sauce? What am I most qualified to teach? And what future am I chasing? Right. So we're gonna have these 5 conversations and we're going to break these things down. All right. So let's jump into it. Don't forget, if you haven't already, share this, tag somebody on your team to come and check this out, because it's going to do you really well to know, for your team to know that, hey, look, here's the things I'm thinking about as a leader. All right. Number 1, first thing for us to think about is, who am I called to? Who am I called to? That picture right there is one of the pictures that I took while in Kenya. And in Kenya, that they're in Africa in general, people come from tribes and they're very much still in tune with their tribes. Right here in America, we're not as in tune. of course, because of our history and how we got to America and how families were split up and broken up and so on and so on. But they're in Kenya, they're very much in tune with who they're related to. And so they know their tribes. And so when I got there, one of the first things that a guy said to me, he started speaking Swahili. And I was like, hey, do you speak English? He's like, you don't speak Swahili? I was like, no. He's like, you're not Kenyan? I was like, no. He's like, yes, you are. You're. And he told me, he said, you're from this tribe called the Luya tribe. He said, you're Luya. He said, because the guys they're all kind of bulky and muscular guys. They mostly wear their, bald heads and beards. You're from Luya. You're Luya, right? And so I just laughed and I was like, okay, look, one of the reasons I was excited to come is to learn more about my roots, right? And so I preached at a church on that Sunday, and the guy there in the pictures from the Luya tribe. And it just did me so well. It was like, man, people are very in tune with the tribe that they come from, and they know the attributes of their tribe. They know what's in the DNA of their tribe, what they've been trained to do, what they've done for generations and generations. They're aware of those things. And so when I think about that as a leader, when I'm asking who am I called to, what I'm on a search to do is to discover my tribe, right? Who are the people who uniquely connect with me, right? And I know that, we can connect with anybody, we can connect with everybody, but I want to know the unique way that I am. Who's my tribe? Because that's important. I'm an apostolic leader. And so if I had my way, man, things would just move fast, right? But here's the difference. I want things to move fast and I want them to move organized and I want them to move right, but I don't want to be responsible for the details, right? So I have to have people in my tribe who understand that that's who I am and who connect with that, right? Who connect with you just think about a church, right? If you have a church, you may have one church that says, okay, man, if we did one event a month, like that would be slow for us. But then you have another church that says if we did one extra event a month outside of worship services and Bible study and small groups, that would be a lot because I got a lot going on in my life. Well, wherever you fall in there, you need to know who your tribe is so that you don't keep spending your time disappointed. Because you might be planning on who you are and how you like to operate. And what you might be discovering is that the people that you're surrounded with or the people that you lead, they don't operate that way, right? They don't operate that way. And so at the very least, you have to shift your expectations so that you can make sure you're on the same page with your team, with your crew, and with the people around you. All right. So you want to think about discovering your tribe, but then you want to explore your team. Do you have people on your team who, number one, support who you are, but then number two, complement who you are, right? Who support who you are, but complement who you are, right? It's not a great thing for you to be in a space where you feel hemmed in because you can just never seem to get on the same page with those around you. And so a part of that is it's not that you're wrong, it's not that they're wrong. You just gotta discover fit, right? We know that from relationships. We know that with marriage. You can be a great person and I can be a great person, but just because there are two great people doesn't mean they'll have a great relationship because they might be great people and good people and nice people, but the things that they value might be so different that it causes friction, right? And so those people might be great because we accept things in a friendship that we won't accept in a marriage, right? We can be great friends when I know that, you just say crazy things whenever you want to and that you're a domineering and crazy person. Because if I'm your friend, I could just tell you like, look, I ain't studying you. I ain't paying you no attention. Like, get out my face, whatever it is, we can laugh about it and go on. If we're married, I can't do that as easily because we've got to interact. We've got to deal with it. And so you need to explore your team and make sure that you can build and develop the kind of relationships with your team that allow you to walk forward and to go further faster. I think it's important that there's a good degree of relationship among teams, especially in smaller churches. In churches under 150, relationships are much more valuable. Like they mean so much more. So we want to explore that. But then number three, you want to tell your story. You want to make sure that you allow your story to come out of your leadership. And this is one of the things that I really want to do better this coming year is I want to do a better job of helping people understand who I am, but how I became who I am. The why behind the what, right? Of explaining and making sure that people understand when I say, hey, look, let's go do this outreach project. I'm not doing it just because I want a full church, but I'm doing it because my heart breaks for the people in our community who are doing life alone. Like that's why. I'm one of those people who sit up and study stats like all week, and I'm always Googling and reading surveys and discovering what's happening in a community. And I'm a part of all these different Facebook groups. I'm a part of all these different things that help me realize what's happening in the lives of the people where we are, right? I'll give you this really cool hack, and this will be a blessing to you. Join the community groups for the community where your church is, right? If they have a neighborhood association, whatever it is, Google your specific community and neighborhood association and see if they have a Facebook group and join it. I'm telling you, man, it is a treasure trove of information for what's happening in your area that really helps you figure out how do we make a difference right here, right? So one of the big things I'm trying to figure out is who am I called to, right? Because when the sheep hear the voice of the shepherd who is called to them, they will recognize that voice. And as under shepherds, when we speak, when we share, our voice should connect with the people who are in our tribe. I learned that in Africa that while many of them speak Swahili, many of the tribes have their own, unique kind of spins on the language. And the same is true for us in leadership. And so we want to explore, right, who are we really, really, really called to? Number two, the second hard conversation I'm having is how can I develop people better? How can I develop people better? I'm really thinking about this one a lot. Like I really, really am. Because I'm trying to figure out, you know, one of the unspoken promises of leadership is that I will take you where you could not go on your own. Right? That's one of the unspoken promises of leadership. I'm going to help you in such a way that your life is going to be different because we walk together, because I help to lead you somewhere, right? And it's not that I'm responsible for your whole life, but it is saying that I'm going to have a positive impact on you. And so one of the things that I'm thinking about is how can I develop people better? And so there are two questions I'm thinking about with that. Number one is what's your style? Like, what's your style of developing people? Because you may not realize it, but you have a style. I realize that my style, my preferred style of leadership is apprenticing, right? I prefer it when I look back over my life and I look back over my journey and the people who I've been able to help most, it's been people who have been able to just walk with me. And as we walk together, they see these different and amazing things happen, right? I think about Elisha and Elijah. He says, hey, look, if you see me when I go, you can have it, right? And what happens is it's Elisha, the young guy, it's his responsibility to just walk with Elijah. And as he walks with Elijah, he gets to experience the process of what it means to really be a prophet, what it really means to carry the anointing and the gifting that is on his life. And Elisha, young guy, learned some things because when Elijah is taken, when the mentor is taken, the mentee comes back and one of the first thing he does is repeats what he sees him do, right? And so he learns that way. And so for me, it's a Elisha, Elijah, Moses, Joshua kind of thing where Joshua, you get to be with me in all these different phases. And as you walk close to Moses in all these different phases, as you learn the secret of my ministry is the fact that I spend significant time in the presence of God in the tabernacle, right? As you learn to carry the very spirit that is on the leader, you get to go, that's the way I prefer to lead, right? But how do you lead that way in a world where people don't have as much time to spend with others? Like, how do you do that? How do you do that in a world where busyness is the greatest threat is a really great threat, I'll say, to our faith and to what we're called to do? Like, how do you do that? And I'm wrestling with that. I'm trying to figure out because in my heart of hearts, I'm one of those people who will load my schedule up with time with people if I know it means effective development for them, effective development for the church, and so on and so on. But how do you do that in a world where time is not as available, right? So what's your style? I'm thinking, okay, one of the things that we're getting ready to roll out in our program is that we're creating a leadership library where we're starting now. We've already started uploading videos, training people. And so we're going to be able to train people digitally, right? So we're going to have a library that's going to help people. Okay, you want to learn how to study the Bible. Here's a 6-week course on our website for how you study the Bible. Here's a 6-week course on, just some simple things you can do to be a better leader. Here's a 6-week course on preaching and teaching. Here's a 6-week course on hearing the voice of God. Here's a 8-week course on prayer. Whatever it is, I'm exploring all of those different things because I'm trying to figure out how do we develop people. And it takes me into that second question, like how much time do you have to spend on developing people? One of the things I started doing this year is I carved out a 1 hour window for, or maybe it's 30, somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour for every leader on our team. Every 2 weeks, they get a 1 hour, either face to face or Zoom call where we sit together and we just talk. And there's no preset topics for that conversation. It's really just about us as people. And then if we have time, then we talk about some things that are ministry related, but it's just committing time to talking. And so, because one of the things that I realize is I've got to be a people developer. I want to develop people. I want people to be better because we're walking together. That's the weight that I feel. It's not something I ask for. It's not something I think about. It's just something that it just seemed to arise and arrive in my life. And so here we are. And so I'm thinking about how can I develop people better? And I can do that through one-on-one time. I can do that through the systems we create. I can do that through all those different things. But how could you better develop people, right? How can you make people better? I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is something that we're working out for our strategic guide for 2023. But one of the things that we're really focusing on is that I believe the name of the game is going to be people development. And so that takes us into this, which is what is our secret sauce? What is our secret sauce? Here's what I'm thinking about. What we know, there's a bunch of churches out there. We know there's churches everywhere. What's going to make our church unique? I've been doing this survey of history, and I've been looking at these different things that have happened over the course of history and how these different things have led to these spurts of growth within the church. I'm talking about the global church, not just any one local church, but the global church. I'm looking at all these different things. And what I'm asking myself is, what's going to be the secret sauce for growth in the next phase? Right now, please don't get super spiritual on me, because I'm not disregarding that. Right? I'm making the assumption that we already know that we've got to be gospel centered, that we've got to be preaching the truth, the gospel, that we've got to be praying, that we've got to be led of the Holy Spirit. Like all of those things I know, right? But here's the point that I'm making to you, right? All of those things are things that unbelievers don't understand, right? Those are the things that unbelievers don't understand. An unbeliever doesn't necessarily know the difference between when you're preaching the true gospel and when you're just being a motivational speaker. They don't know the difference. Now you do internally. But what I'm thinking about is I'm having this conversation from the standpoint of the people that we're called to reach, so that I can make sure that internally we're on the same page. And so what I'm asking is, what are we trying to be known for? Because I believe that the answer to that is different. And some of you, absolutely, your answer may be say, I want to be known for preaching the gospel. Some people may say, I want to be known for just reaching a lot of people, having big crowds. I want to be known for having the best worship music. I want to be known for being the best preacher. I want to be known for having the best facility. I want to be known for having the best small groups or the best Bible study. I want to be known for having the best youth program or whatever it is. Like, what are you really looking at to be known for? Because that really may reveal to you what the secret sauce is for you. Right. And so for me, there's a different target that I want to chase. And the target that I want to chase is, I want to be known for developing people. Like, that's what I want to be known for. I want to be known, and even for our church, to be known for helping people discover their gifts, grow up in their gifts, and then to live out their gifts. When I think about church, the norm for many of the churches in America has become one elevated gift out front, surrounded by potential gifts that never get used, right? And so I'll use the most common one, which is preachers. We know you only got one platform to preach from, and the larger you get, the more you feel the pressure of protecting that platform and reserving it for the most gifted teacher. So you don't have, if you're called to preach the gospel within the framework of the church, you don't have any other opportunities for people to be able to do that. And so people who could potentially be high level speakers and even could potentially become better than the main speaker never get a chance to develop in that gift, because one of the ways you get better at preaching is by preaching, right? That's one of the ways you get better, right? And I know what you're thinking. You're saying like, man, you can preach anywhere. You can preach with your life. You can go to the street corner and preach. You can go to the nursing home and preach. You can go and do all of those things. And all of those things are absolutely true, right? But what I'm thinking about in this conversation is I want our church to be a church that when somebody thinks to themselves, I am a, a pastor, I'm a natural shepherd, I want to care for people. That is a church that if I go there, they'll help me become a better shepherd. I'm a prophetic leader. I want to be clear about being in tune with the voice of God so that I can help be a voice of God to the world. If I go to that church, they're going to help me develop as a prophetic gift and give me space to practice being prophetic in what we do, right? That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about being known for transformation. It's in our mission to make, develop, and empower transformed followers of Jesus, right? That's what we want to do. We want to empower people to go in their faith. And so for you, what's your target? What's your secret sauce? Because you might discover that you've been spending a lot of time focusing on things that are outside your zone of genius or your zone of calling, right? Because most of us, we're not leading churches where God has called us to say, hey, look, I needed another church in this community that just had really awesome, the best musicianship and worship you could ever garner. Or man, that community, they just need the best programs you could offer. Like what's really the secret sauce? What's the reason God really called us and put us out there? And for me, it's transformation. I never forget when I first got my call. One of the things that I felt like the Holy Spirit impressed upon my heart is that people think studying the Bible is complicated. Help them see that it's simple. Simplify and translate my word into the language of this modern culture so that they understand how relevant it is and how powerful it is, right? So for your church, what's going to be the secret sauce? Another way to think of it, what's going to make you different? What's going to make you different? There's a reason that people pass by multiple churches that are close to their home to go to the church of their choice. Why? In the 1920s and 40s, churches built community churches that seated 1,000 people and only had 100 parking spaces. Why? Because people in the community just walked to church. But then that changed. People have choice. They can move around. So what's going to be the thing that makes church, or your church specifically, unique? All right, something to think about. That's what I'm wrestling. What's our secret sauce? Number 4. Here's another one I'm thinking about. What am I most qualified to teach? I was thinking about this. Man, this Bible, man, there's so much in here. Right? And I was just asking myself this random question. I was like, if I wanted to teach our church the entire Bible, like, how long would it take for us to do it? Because this thing is never ending, right? And so what I started to think about is, how can I help us create laser focus as a church, right? Because here's what I'm thinking about. Is it better for us to have a cloudy recollection of the whole Bible, or of all 66 books of the Bible, or to have a really strong recollection of one book of the Bible? Like, which is better? Like, which makes more of a difference, right? Which helps us more, right? Which makes a difference. And so I was thinking about that. And so I'm getting ready to do something real crazy, right? And I'm calling it crazy because I had done it before. But man, I'm telling you, while I was down for this surgery, I had a lot of time alone to just like spend with the Lord. It was just me and him, you know, because all I could do is basically lay on the couch and just cry and just, you know, let my wife and the girls bring me juice and medicine. And so, one of the things that I'm going to do this next year, and I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do it, I'm going to put this in the strategic guide for 2023, is for the entire year of 2023, we're going to preach mainly from one book of the Bible. Like I've identified one book of the Bible that I think is very important to that covers rather a very large scope of scripture and does a great job of summarizing and pulling in other biblical sources. And we're going to use that one book of the Bible as the foundation for every series we do for 2023. That one book of the Bible, right? And I'm not going to like work through it in order from front to back, but every topic we cover is going to help us navigate through that one book of the Bible. Because what I'm saying is, what if this time next year I can say, man, if you've been following us and been a part of our congregation, you know, like almost everything there is to know about that book of the Bible, right? Because in every introduction, I'm giving you history, I'm giving you context, I'm taking you into that culture, into that space, and then I'm translating you into our modern culture so that you understand what the writer was really saying and what he was really addressing and really doing, and using that book of the Bible to address all the different areas of your life that we're going to talk about over the course of 2023. Because one of the big problems we see is that modern Christians in large, not everybody, but largely are just biblically illiterate. They don't know their Bibles. They don't know. And so as a result, they're not as equipped as they could be or should be to deal with the issues that are happening in and around their lives. And so we want to address that. And so the question I'm asking is, which books of the Bible do I lean towards most? You know, there are just certain people in scripture that I have always been drawn to, right? To them, it's just when I read them, I just get it. Moses is one, Joshua is one, Paul is another, of course, Jesus, uh, Peter is another. Like I've just always been drawn to those people, right? And so since I've been drawn to them, I'm kind of wondering, okay, what is it inside of me that connects with them so much that God uses them to bring light to all of, you know, scripture, right? And so we're not, you know, going to ignore the rest of scripture. We're going to reference other parts of scripture as we always do, but we're going to take our church on a journey to say, look, let's really dive into this book of the Bible. So when we come out of this year, if we can just grab this part of the Bible, it will help unlock for us all of the other parts of the Bible in ways that will be beneficial, right? So for you, you know, when I say what I'm most qualified to teach, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, what am I most passionate about? Which books of the Bible has God given me such a wealth of understanding of, whether it be from experience, from study, whatever it is, from passion, that I can capitalize on that by going to the strong suits. But and here's another reason I think about this. I realize that the sermons I preach that are in my heart are always better than the sermons that are on my mind. The sermons in my heart are always better than the sermons on my mind. Because if it's in my heart, then the Holy Spirit just has a way of pulling on all these connecting points to make everything come together for a cohesive unit. All right. So that's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm wrestling with. All right. Last thing is, and this is important, and we'll spend our last few minutes here. What future am I chasing? Pastor, leader, hear me. This is vitally important for you to know. You need to know the future that you're chasing. Um, Again, I've shared over and over again the stats on the number of pastors and church leaders who are quitting or resigning or retiring or moving to different industries and all these kinds of things. Right? We've talked about that over and over again. What I'm saying to you, I think a part of what that is that I don't think we're doing a good enough job of measuring progress. I don't know where we grab this idea that humility in the kingdom is about not caring where we end up. That we think that it's humility to say, well, I don't care, whatever God wants the church to be, it's going to become. Or I don't care how many we have, that doesn't matter. Or I don't care. And it's like, I just don't see that echoed in scripture. Instead, when I look at stuff like the parable of the talents, when Jesus is using this parable as a kingdom analogy for what God expects of us, right? This man who is going on a long journey, who is entrusting his affairs to those who are a part of his organization, a part of his family, a part of his network, and who is coming back with expectation. Not that they're going to give to him what he left them with, but coming back with the expectation that and this is, oh my goodness, this is so important, that he doesn't even really, even the servant who buries the talent, his gripe with him is not that, oh, I gave you one, you should have gave me 10. He didn't put that kind of expectation on him. He didn't put a number expectation on what he did. He put an expectation on his efforts. He said, you could have at least invested it. You knew my goal was expansion. I told you that's the whole point, is expansion. Right? And that's what the whole Great Commission is. It is a mission of kingdom expansion. And so I don't know where we grab this idea that humility means not caring about outcomes. Because number one, that is not how the biblical mission is communicated. But then number two, that's not how you're built as a person. It's not how you're built as a person. You don't go to a job interview and say, oh, well, I don't even care how much y'all pay me. I just want to do the job. That's not how we're built, right? We naturally have expectations. Even in relationships, we have expectations. We have expectations, right? And so I think what has led to so much burnout and frustration from us is that we have expectations that either we're afraid to communicate. Number two, we won't be honest about, right? We won't be honest about the fact that we have those expectations. And then number three, when we are honest about those expectations, we won't manage them. And so here's what I'm trying to do, is that I'm trying to be honest. I want to be brutally honest about my expectations. I want to be brutally honest about my expectations, about where we need to go. All right, 3 questions, and these are going to be very deep, important questions. They're simple, but they're very, very deep and important. Number one, what makes me feel ineffective? Right? I remember, and I know what it's like to have days where you go to church and you see or hear certain things, and they trigger feelings of ineffectiveness in you. I remember as a church planter, those early days, I would be there excited to be out in church early because, I was one of those people who wanted to be on the front row while worship was happening, right? I didn't want to do the whole, let me walk out late and, then everybody takes their attention off of worship and off of God and they looking at me because here come pastor type of deal, right? And so I would just always be out. I want to be out there sitting. I want to be out there in worship, right? And I remember days where I would go out there and worship and it was just like a sprinkle of people in the room. And I just remember feeling so ineffective. And I literally just would sit there and say, like, I would ask God questions like, God, how many people warrants having a church? Listen, I'm just telling y'all, I'm just being honest. This is just me sharing y'all thoughts that's going through my head, right? You can feel how you want to feel about it. I'm just sharing you my thoughts. I would pray and I would ask God, if it's 10 of us in this room, why do we need this big expansive gathering? Why are we trying to put all of this worship and all of this structure and all of this stuff together when the 10 of us could A, meet at somebody's house and just study the word together, or B, go find another body to be a part of where we could just go in there and help them make a difference? And I would ask the question, Lord, how many people in the room warrants a church? I was talking with one of our guys here at the church recently, And, he was just talking to me about some of the history of the church and stuff like that. And he was just telling me about these different points in the history of our church where they almost closed the doors. And it was like, in one particular day, he was telling me, he said, the Sunday where we had 15 people in the room for Easter, and 6 of those people were my family. So that meant it was only 9 other people, in the room outside of our family. He wasn't a pastor, and he was an elder. But he said when we came to that point, that was a point for us where we were really considering it might be worth closing the doors and going and being a part of another church. So for me, when I looked out there and I saw that the way that I saw what church was going to be and the people we had when they weren't meshing for a season, I started thinking about if it was worth it. Right. And in that particular place, it was that way because we were a new growing church. We just didn't have culture yet. We were building. So people were still coming late. At that time, our worship department was developing. And so people, were telling us that, hey, I'm not quite tracking with the worship because I'm going to come a little bit late because I just want to catch the message and I'm going to be out of here. That's one of the things they were telling us. Right. So here's what you got to ask. What makes you feel ineffective? I remember feeling ineffective when I kept seeing personal issues in our leadership, where I noticed that the people who were in leadership were not growing in how they made wise decisions. Right. And again, at that time, our church was so young, and the people that were leaders, they were basically new converts who were just willing to help. Right. So having that conversation helped me clarify that. Right. Because sometimes you're going to ask that question and you're not going to look at your church and go, well, this is what's wrong. You're going to look at yourself and going, this is how I'm seeing this wrong, which is why you need to have this conversation. Number 2 is, when do I feel most effective? Like, when do I feel like, okay, we're really making some strides, right? Yeah. New people are a part of that. When I see new people, that lets me know we're making some strides, right? That's a part of seeing the future really, really come alive. Right. Another thing is seeing new leaders and volunteers develop feels effective. Right. Another thing, and this is a really simple one, but this is a big one for me. When people care about who I am as a person, I feel effective. This is a disease we don't talk a lot about in the church as pastors. Is that, let's say hypothetically you have a congregation of 100. In many situations, you're responsible for checking in on that 100 when they have stuff going on. And when stuff happens in your life, you might be lucky if 5 check on you. And so for me, when people care about me as a person, I feel effective. It just is. It's a pattern I've seen in my life. I care less about the existential numbers when the internal stuff is strong and tight. And so one of the times that I feel most effective is when people are just saying like, hey, Pastor, how are things going in your life? Or, hey, Pastor, how can I pray for you? How can I check on you? So and so. Like, that's important because that's who I try to be for people. And again, I don't stretch myself thin by trying to be there for everybody. I do try to create a structure where if you're in a small group, you've got people in your small group who are checking on you constantly. If you're in a ministry, you've got people in your ministry who are checking on you constantly. You've got those things happening, right? And so I do try to do it that way, but that's one of the things that helps me feel most effective, right? Here's the last question. What do I need to see in the next 12 months? This is another one of those big questions. And I'm telling you, I'm pulling this directly from my conversation with y'all. So pastors, I'm talking to y'all, leaders, bishops, apostles, network, denomination leaders. I'm talking to you because these are the things that I keep hearing when I'm talking to leaders in these breakthrough sessions. Is that I'm asking you like, okay, what needs to happen? Because many leaders are telling me like, man, let me tell you one of the most frequent things I hear is really when I ask pastor, what made you reach out? Why do you want to talk? Well, you know what the primary thing that many of them are saying to me? This is pastors of smaller churches, under 150 mostly. They're saying, I want to put systems in place to get our church strong so I can pass it off to the next person. Because I'm tired. I'm done. I really just want to leave, but because I feel ineffective and I don't feel like it's working and it's going well. And I feel like, where we were, the highs that we had have now come down. I don't know how to get it back up. And so what I'm trying to do is make a last ditch effort to get momentum up and to get structure and organization in place so I don't pass a mess to whoever comes in next. Now that's the 1000% truth. And so this is why I want you to answer this question. What do you need to see in the next 12 months to encourage you to know that God is still working through you in the ministry? That's a real question. What do you need to see in the next 12 months? What do you need to see? What do you need to see? What needs to happen? All right, I'm gonna tell you a real story. I'm gonna close out. I was working with a pastor, and he came in with this exact same question. Like, I gotta pass this off to somebody else. And I said, man, listen. I said, you got all the framework is there. You got a solid group of people around you. They need some more direction, instruction, whatever it is. You need to put some systems in place so you don't have to. You're working harder than you have to, simply because you're not organized the way you need to be. So, if you do that, I said, man, I really think you could turn the corner. And so we started working together. And lo and behold, a week after we started working, we saw a couple of things change. Like, a couple of systems we put in place started to go like, oh, okay, cool. We realized because we didn't have systems in place, we didn't know what we had. We didn't realize what we had. We didn't realize that there were new people who were coming and who were engaging with us, consistently online and in person. But because we didn't have a process to convert them and assimilate them from the outside of the church to the inside of the church, we didn't know it. So we put the system in place. Instantly we can see, okay, at least every week we're getting at least one person who says, I want to connect with the church, at least every week, right? And they stayed on that streak for like 3 months. We put the system in place for 3 months. They saw new people started connecting. So now this pastor's, his countenance starts to change a little bit, like, oh, okay, cool, we got something. So now we got a process in place. So now those people are coming forward. So now they're becoming members. They're becoming volunteers. They're becoming givers. They're making these transitions now, which help us take next steps. And so what we saw over the course of time is that thing changed, because when we started working together, I said, what do you need to see? I said, what needs to happen for you to feel like, okay, I got to see this in the next 12 months to feel effective? He said, man, I got to see some growth, man. Like, we got to add some new people. Like, it's been our same crew for a while now coming through this pandemic, man, and we lost some of our regulars. And he was like, I can't even look out there and see a new person who has got engaged in what we're doing in a while. I got to see some new people. I'm like, how many new people you need? Man, I don't even know. I said, all right, let me give you a number. I said, if you see 30 new people engaged over the next 12 months, is that a strong number for you? He was like, psh, yeah, man, if we can see 30 new people, man, that's a big deal. I said, okay, what about 50, man? He said, man, we can see 50 new people engaged. It will change everything. That was his thing. What is that for you as a leader? Listen, I get it. It feels awkward having that conversation because it feels like you're using the language of a hired hand. And that's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm asking you to do is to be honest with yourself about what your expectations are. Because if you have those expectations and don't voice them, when they're not met, it just frustrates and discourages us more. So all I'm saying is just be honest. It don't have to be these big, wild numbers. For you, it could just be, man, I want to see my leadership team take responsibility for the areas where they lead. I want to see our leadership team get on the same page, right? And where they work together independent of me as a leader to get things done. I want to see us successfully pull off a project that I don't have to personally lead, right? Like, whatever it is, like, you can lay it out. But what do you need to see over the next 12 months in order for you to be encouraged to drive towards the future that you're chasing? I want you to be encouraged. And that's why I'm having this hard conversation with myself. I'm saying, what do I need to see? What do I need to see, right? And so for me, I'm thinking about culture things. I'm thinking about as I step into my third year as a pastor of a church, then I'm thinking about, okay, what are those things that are in the vision that God has given me that need to start to rise to the visible level of the culture, so that I realize that I can fully be who I'm called to be as I lead our church forward, and who we're called to be. So you got to identify that for you. All right. So listen, I want to give you this opportunity. You need somebody to help you think through this. I want to give you a chance to book your free breakthrough session. All right. Here's what we do. We do these free breakthrough sessions with pastors. My promise to you is that I'm going to give you real actionable feedback. Specifically, I'm going to give you three things that you can do immediately, that you can take back to your team and that you can go and put into place to help you start taking some next steps. All right. And that could be different things. It's different for everyone. I don't have a list of three things that I give everybody. After we have a conversation, I ask you questions, then I start talking to you about it, and they're custom to you. All right. I'm going to give you a free, if it's relevant to you, I'll give you free resources to help you. So I'll give you websites, I'll give you tools, I'll give you all these different things. That's okay. Look here, go look at this website, type this in. This is going to help you do what you need to do to go forward. And it's a 45-minute session. All right. That 45-minute session is completely free to you. And all you got to do in order to plug in with it is three different ways. One, you can go to our website, simplesystems.cc. You can go there on our website. You will see a link where you can plug into that. You can email me at henry@simplesystems.cc, and I'll personally walk you through it. Or you can call and text me at the number on the screen, and I can help you do it there. Again, my ultimate goal is really just to help you take the next steps, because I believe in the future of the church. And so I'm going to help you take the next steps you need to take so that you can get from where you are to where God has called you to be. All right. Listen, I know that this has been a blessing to you. I want to encourage you. Have the hard conversations. All right. If you're watching this in real time, you're watching us live. We're getting ready for the Kingdom Clarity Retreat, where we are getting ready to go away with some of our partners, our clients in our church systems bootcamp program. And we're going to spend a week with them putting together their customized strategic plan for 2023. Once that plan is done and complete, we'll make it available for you. But the goal is to help you thrive into the next year and maximize every opportunity that God has given you. All right. Listen, if you haven't already, go ahead and do me a favor. Share this, like this. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We want to make sure that you can stay connected and stay in the loop with the new things that we're doing and some things that we have coming. We have some major announcements coming real soon. And I'm telling you, we're about to change the game for how churches do systems. And I want you to be in the loop on what's happening. All right. So listen, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Until next time.